So we are here taking some questions that you guys submitted on my website, truetoothcounseling.com, and I pulled Ryan in today because some of these are relationship type questions that I think would be interesting to answer from different perspectives, and we have some different perspectives on these things. So I've gotten quite a few questions about relationships lately, so I'm going to group a bunch of them together and we can talk through some of the questions, and some of them are a little bit controversial, possibly. And some of the opinions that he may have, maybe that I have as well, maybe a little bit controversial, so we'll get into some of those. So I have 4 options for questions today. So do you want to pick a number 1 through 4 and we'll choose a question? He doesn't know these questions yet.
Number 2.
Number 2. All right. So the question is, my boyfriend is extremely flirty with other women. Even if I am there, he will still go off and talk to other women. He says it's harmless and it is just the way he is, but I can't feel comfortable. How do you know if it's harmless flirting, parentheses, is there such a thing as harmless flirting, or is it a sign of a bigger issue? Do you want to, do you want to take that on first?
Yeah. I don't think that one is that complicated. I think one of the bat, I don't think that it's okay by any means. Like, yes, there is harmless flirting. So I think one, in relation to him flirting in front of you, I think that is a no-no, especially if it's very blatant and a bit over the board. Like, if it's a light joke, that's one thing, and like a light joke once in a blue moon, rather than him, as I say, blatantly going and doing it in front of your face. I think.
So no, is it better for him to hide it and do it when she's not there?
No, but still, like, just a matter of respect. One, as I said, like, if you're in a setting where you're with other women and a woman makes a joke or she flirts with you and you flirt back, and one, if your girlfriend is there, you should not flirt back. 2, if your girlfriend is not there and you do flirt back, of course you still have restrictions because you have a girlfriend. So I think that even if there's once in a blue moon you do that just in conversation, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think especially when your partner is there, out of respect, you just shouldn't do it. Or just out of awareness too, like, if you know your partner really well and they're okay with you making that joke, you must know your partner also. And then, of course, y'all will know, or y'all should know your boundaries. So, like, what is the joke that you're allowed to make? I guess that's where it gets a bit specific.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't, what he's doing is not okay. Like, there are no grounds for him acting like that. With or without you, honestly. I think there is a big issue. I think that if you're not okay with it and you bring it up and he's not willing to compromise, then that is another issue. But no, his actions are not justifiable. You can't do that. That's not okay.
Well, I also wonder what actually is going on, because there's so many things that this could actually look like. Because in this question, she says that he will go off and talk to other women.
Right.
So that sounds really bad, and it probably is really bad, especially if she can't find him, like, in a club or at a party and he's off talking to other women.
Yeah.
But I also know people who are just friendly and they would be talking to anyone.
Yeah.
So if this is also a highly sensitive person that maybe has been cheated on in the past, they could take any conversations that someone has with anyone as offensive.
Yeah.
And maybe he talked to just as many men, but she didn't see that because she's zoning in on the women as a threat.
Right.
So I agree with you, and I think that's probably the case.
Yeah.
But there also, I think, is a possibility that someone feels overly sensitive when there actually isn't an issue there.
Yeah.
I think you're definitely right with there needs to be a conversation around it and a conversation around boundaries, because either something's going on and he just actually doesn't care if you get mad or what he's doing, and that's obviously a bigger problem.
Yeah.
And if you bring it to his attention and he's like keeps saying like, oh no, there's nothing there, but he keeps doing it and maybe continues to kind of get worse and escalate, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
If you bring it up and he's like, I didn't realize that was like offending you, like
That's
maybe
different.
I knew need to reel it in, or he responds at least in some way kind of responsive,
Yeah.
then that's probably a good thing, and you can establish your boundaries and expectations around that. I think it also is harder for people who have been single for a long time to stop doing some of those things sometimes, because it's normal to go to a party and talk to people.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's harder to change those things.
Yeah.
But someone who really cares about you will want to work with you and keep working with you and keep being open and keep like working to make you feel comfortable, right? Instead of making excuses. Because if he's minimizing it and constantly minimizing it and making excuses, then that's a signal that there is a bigger problem, I think.
Yeah.
So how he addresses it. But then also how you address it. Like if you bring it up really, really mad or accusatory, he could get defensive whether there's something there or not.
Yeah.
So it's complicated. There was another thing that I was gonna say.
Just to kind of agree with your point, like, yeah, I think it has a lot to do with your past experience, and because that will affect your entire perception of it. So even the same girl we're asking the question of, like, what do you do? Like, do you not go speak to other men in the party, or do you not flirt with men? And what does that look for you? And then ask yourself, what do you do and why is it like that? You know, I think that's a better way of even bringing up the conversation. Like, I realize you do this, but I do it in this manner, and because of my experience, this is how I perceive it. Instead of being like, babe, what the hell you doing? Like, I see you doing this.
How dare you talk to other people?
Yeah, you know, like,
Yeah.
I think bringing it from what it looks like and what you've experienced before makes it far easier for him to be like, okay, understand why I see it like that. And then in that conversation, like, it'll be easy to tell, okay, is he really willing to compromise? Because I'm not accusing him, I'm just telling him what I'm thinking. And if he's like, no, it's nothing, and he continues doing it in a flirtatious manner and not considering the conversation y'all had, or maybe y'all may come to agreement or not, then it'll be easier for you to like see through the reality. So,
And thank you, that reminded me of what I was thinking too, which is along those lines. And I'm sorry, it's bright, so I'm like squinty here. I'm like, can barely see, but don't mind the squints. It's like, because she asks also, is there such a thing as harmless flirting?
yeah,
And I think that brings up the question of like, what is flirting?
yeah,
And what is, like, where is that a problem and where is it not?
yeah,
And I think that goes back to intention, like
Right.
what you're doing with that, and what you've worked out as a couple, and like where you are as a couple.
Yeah.
Because even I have been in relationships where the person didn't mind me talking to other men and maybe
Yeah.
even like being a little bit flirty,
yeah,
but that was okay with what we had established in our relationship, and we were secure enough that we knew like nothing was happening with
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and that we had just worked out that dynamic.
Yeah.
But other people, even like talking to someone else, that would have been highly offensive. So I think it's working out how you operate as a
Yeah,
couple, because some people even like to go out and see like, oh yeah, like he's talking to someone else or she's
Yeah.
talking, and that's kind of their dynamic.
Yeah.
Some people, like, that's not okay in any way, shape, or form, and is like a hard line.
yeah,
But I think the lines they're not as cut and dry
Yeah.
as it seems at first. So you need to talk about it. You need to figure out what's okay for you,
yeah,
and like where you are in the relationship, and then figure out how to meet the person in that too.
yeah. I think there's an interesting point on something you said. This is not necessarily off topic, but I know in my past relationships, like, I remember having one of my girlfriends she really suffered with her self-esteem and so on. And she was never really a flirtatious person and so on, but she was attractive. And I remember kind of pushing her to go and not flirt in that manner, but at least let her get more recognition or understand how beautiful she is by receiving what people were giving her, right? So yes, I'm not, as I say, nothing too crazy, but yeah, if a guy comes talk to her in a party, I would kind of be happy for her, because in her mind it's like, oh, I am attractive. People do see me. Like, he did tell me I was beautiful. Like, people are interested in me, you know, and I think that's more personal beyond relationship. Like, until you understand your partner and you know where they stand, and then of course you build a level of trust, then you can entertain that sort of thing, because you know what it's actually doing. Like, you trust them and you know that it's actually for their benefit. I know it sounds crazy, but that is a norm for a lot of people. Like, I know a lot of people who are in relationships where they allow that because of that specific reason for both people in the relationship. Like, just to remind you that, hey, I am, even older couples too. Like, I think I had this specific conversation with an older guy. And he was like, yeah, my wife likes women to come at me in a party. Like, I dress up and it makes her feel good. Like, yes, my man is attractive. Like,
Yeah.
and of course he gets the same boost. Like, he feel like, yes, I am still attractive, you know? And yeah.
Which I think is kind of another tangent in this that is sort of there, is that flirting, I think, can be okay sometimes in relationships, and it can even invigorate them.
Yeah.
Only if both people are on board and completely comfortable.
Yeah.
So if the relationship is super secure and you're both secure with each other and yourselves, then that can be played with and it could be added for some people.
Yeah.
For some personalities, it's never going to be a thing. But for some people, it can be. But it has to be completely consensual, and it can't be like an excuse for someone to like play with cheating or play with crossing a line or something. It has to be something that you're both okay with, you both know the lines, and you both are very comfortable, like I said, with yourself and with the other person. Because I do think that overly trying to control someone is a sign of insecurity a lot of the time. If you were really, really worried about someone going out and getting any sort of attention, then you don't trust them, and you're probably insecure with either yourself or the relationship or both, or you're just not confident about that. So there's something there, and it could be that they're not trustworthy. It could be that you are really insecure, you have been cheated on before. But if you're trying to overly control someone, it's usually the sign that something is probably wrong somewhere, something is going on. Because if you're really secure, then you're okay with someone getting some level of attention, because you know that they'll handle it in the way that you both agreed upon. But that's so much easier also to say than to do, because relationships are so complicated, and of course people get jealous and things come up, but I do think that like overly controlling someone is a sign that something's wrong. But in this case, in this question, I think maybe this woman will come off as trying to be overly controlling, but more likely she's doing that for a reason, because something is actually wrong. And he probably is trying to play it off like, oh, like you're just jealous, you're being controlling. But likely he is doing something or will do something that isn't okay with the relationship. So I don't know, it's complicated. There's so many ways that it could go. But I think bottom line, which it sounds like we both agree on, is that you should talk to him and try to talk to him in a really like open way that facilitates conversation. And depending on how he responds to that and continues to respond to this, will tell you more. And if he's open to working with you and trying a little bit, then you can probably work through it. And if he's not, then there probably is something else going on. Agreed?
Totally.
All right. Well, thank you for your question, and I hope that helps. And if there's any like other questions or comments that you guys have, or completely different opinions, please let us know.